Welcome to the Penguin Podcast, brought to you by Penguin Facilities Management.
Lee, thanks very much for joining us on the Penguin Podcast. Very much an interesting subject that we're going to discuss today. A subject that basically setting some of the myths of fire compliance, right. If you could just introduce yourself to everybody before we start, that'd be awesome.
Thanks for inviting me, Mike. I'm Lee Kennedy, so I own West Midlands Fire Door Inspections, and I also work with UK Task Force and the Institute of Construction Management of their head of Fire Door Competency.
So Lee, you've been in the industry for quite a while now. You've got a varied background in fit out, construction, compliance. What drew you into the current business that you're in now?
Well, it's an interesting one, really, because the construction arm that I was in, or the bespoke construction part of joinery, I've really always been involved around fire and fire doors. It's evolved into more of a passion of where I stopped doing the construction side and concentrated more on fire. And I think that's probably been in the last, I would say 2011 is where I really said, you know what, this is what I want to do more than the whole side of the construction industry. So probably around that time.
Yeah, so how has your approach then to compliance helped you from having that experience in them sectors?
Well, hugely. So if we look at what we call as competence now, and that framework of what is competence, it requires that skills, knowledge, experience and behaviour. So it's a linear process. So understanding doors, understanding timber products, construction products, it's just there. So I always knew and understood what the requirements were. So I think it's pretty much like it's your grounding of apprenticeship. I think I understood construction, so understanding compliance just became a natural thing to understand.
Yeah, and I agree with that because, many inspectors, assessors, whatever we call them, many of them people over the years that I've spoke to, they've just done a course.
Yeah.
Yeah, they've not got that built environment knowledge, they've not got that construction knowledge. So what you're saying is having that construction knowledge, having that built environment knowledge, how things are made up, it's so important when choosing, your partner and your assessor.
Yeah, it's hugely important, and I'm seeing more now, especially through my subject matter expert stuff, where I'm looking at inspection reports and saying, I don't understand how this person has come to this, but they're going on, quite short pathways to get to what they deem as competent. But if you don't understand all of the legal requirements, whether it be the Building Safety Act, whether it be building regulations, Consumer Rights Act, the Fire Safety Order 2005, Equalities Act, BS 8300, you can't actually do it. You think you can. We have a massive issue in the industry between believing and knowing. Belief is something that people really passionately believe, but knowing is a statement of fact.
Yeah.
And having this experience that I've got and other people what have come on that linear journey through the industry, they know rather than believe. They deal with what is in fact, what is in law.
Yeah.
So I think all of it becomes, and it was always the case. It's only a new thing that people believe that you can do it on a quick pathway.
And there's so much of that. I'm talking to people who've been on courses for days.
Yeah.
Rather than, a journey and a prime qualification, because we're talking about building safety.
Yeah.
and being able to, be that person that claims compliance
Yeah.
is telling somebody who's only been, or they've only been on a course for a couple of days.
Yeah.
Do you think this is where that misconception is, and the way that people are thought of, from the compliance professionals? That's what they should be classed as, but there is so many misconceptions about compliance professionals. Is it these kind of courses that are creating the misconceptions?
Yeah, so the wording in courses, I've particularly drawn issue to one in Birmingham at the moment. What's doing, lots of people are going through, and it had they've changed their website, but they had things on there that become a fire professional for 800 quid online. Well, it becomes dangerous, doesn't it? It becomes dangerous when people are throwing that around. And I believe that people are believing that you can do that. You can pay this amount of money,
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
you become competent. But I think what's missed is where we're working and you're working as the FM for the responsible person or client. I don't think the clients actually understand that it's for them to make judgment of the competence. Well, competence has to be demonstrable.
Yeah, it's got to
So,
start with that responsible person. And I think this is where it's totally wrong at the moment.
yeah,
From an FM provider who sits there as very much the middleman between the responsible person, yeah, and the professional, the compliance professional, we are very much, there's a big lack of understanding
yeah.
that actually it starts with this responsible person. It's them that are actually saying, yes, I agree to engage with this person, and I've done that based on understanding what their qualifications are and what their experience is.
Yeah, it's so the FM world done correctly, and I work around quite a few different FM companies. I would always recommend to a responsible person work for an FM, because when we talk about compliance, we're talking about holistic compliance. So if you employ a door inspector, he is looking at your doors. But then you've got someone looking at your alarm, you've got someone looking at your sprinkler system, you've got,
Yeah,
well, who's bringing all this together? And then the package needs to be based on risk, because in existing buildings, there is no retrospective requirement to meet current code, just maintain as originally intended. But the journey is also linear. So once you've had, let's say, your doors inspected and maintained in accordance with the requirement of the risk assessment, that path it's a circular. It doesn't stop. You go through the process. So it is get a competent person, get an inspection, put that to the risk assessor to what they deem practical
again,
against the holistic.
that is a
Yep.
key thing that is being missed.
So it's being missed, driven around sales. So we have a huge thing within. So the biggest seller in compliance. So if I said to you, what is the most profitable thing in fire door compliance at the moment? What would you say?
Replace them.
Right. I would say it's confusion.
Well,
We have third-party accreditations. Everybody's putting them on the tender list, but a third-party accreditation is essentially you could put your receptionist or the guy out of your, wages clerk, or the, anyone within your business,
yeah,
irrespective of their previous history or knowledge, could go on a third party course for 3 days and be allowed to be the lead person of 20 people as installers and maintainers. Well, that is something what's on a tender list. Well, does that sound safe to you? So they've got no history. Now, people talk about these courses and they talk about the gold standard. I would say to you, Go and find me someone who's attended all 3 days and never failed the course, and you will know. So it's an attendance only course. It, it doesn't define competence. And as you've seen, I've just done a post about it to say, does that third-party accreditation protect the responsible person?
Yeah,
because
I read
if
it.
you're putting it on your tender list, it's because you presume it protects you.
Yeah.
Well, it doesn't protect you because it heavily concentrates around a narrow pathway and around Part B. Well, as the responsible person, you're not just dealing with Part B, you're dealing with building regs, the Building Safety Act,
Yeah.
and the Fire Safety Order. You can't just look at one thing, you've got the Equalities Act to consider.
Let's be honest, does that responsible person actually know what the system is? What is that journey from one end, the start, to the finish? And that is the problem. We have spoke many a times where, and I've had the conversation, with my guys. They're coming to me with fire door inspections.
Yep.
And I'm then asking, right, where's the fire risk assessment? Where's the fire strategy?
Yep.
Who is their assessor? Who is the person we are going to discuss this fire door inspection with? And the answer is, well, we don't have anybody, or we just rung so and so up who did the fire risk assessment at £600-700. There is no relationship. So how are them people meant to understand? And as you said, there's a massive confusion of what the actual process is. So how do we change that?
So, and this brings us back to what we said earlier when I was talking about competence. And when you look at Article 18, safety and assistance within the Fire Safety Order, or if you look at Section 11F of Building Regulations under SCEB, and organisational capacities and behaviour, you have to look and think, are they not being helped because they're not concentrating first port, making sure they're employing someone with demonstrable competence, someone with SCEB, someone with the behaviour? Because and I don't try and draw too many car scenarios, but if we look at an MOT, they will tell you what you need to legally do, and they will also tell you what they could advise. But they will never make you believe what you're doing is for legal reasons, unless, well, if they did, they'd be called dodgy MOT. Well, we've got that in the industry. So we've got to say, as the responsible person, are you engaging competence right the way through? If you get an because do your residents or do the people you're in charge of, or their properties or their safety, well, they deserve to have you make sure the person you're using is competent.
Yeah.
That they understand the pathways that they need to understand. They understand what legal compliance is. They understand that it's not retrospective. You can't just charge people money for things that are not required. If you go and have your car MOT'd and they say, well, you've got 8,000 miles on your brake pads and you do 6,000 a year, you don't have them change there and then, because they are saying it's perfectly safe to drive, but we are alerting you of letting you know this, or
Yeah.
it would. But what we have, the problem is we haven't identified the competence, and then we are making a presumption: is the competent person just the person with a toolkit? Why can't the competent person be the FM company? What are going to lead you all the way through? They're going to do the cradle to grave. They are going to source the competent person for you. They're going to get the correct risk assessor for your building. They're going to, with those reports, they're going to communicate the most practicable solution for you going forward. And then they are going to make sure the buildings are maintained periodically as required within that suitable and sufficient risk assessment. So it's, are they employing, because they're spending, what I will say is, responsible persons are spending the money, but are they spending it the right way?
Yeah,
are
exactly.
Are they spending it on something that they think is a gold standard, Well, actually, it's a bit like, it's very similar to this, isn't it? They are trying to buy a diamond, but they're getting a cubic zirconia. And when I shine a torch on it or a light on it, it's not what it actually appears to be.
Yeah,
And
and that's where the responsible person, they're looking at everything individually.
yeah,
So when they're purchasing, they will purchase a fire risk assessment. Then they will go to somebody else and purchase a fire strategy. Then they will go to somebody else and purchase a fire door inspection.
yeah,
Then they will go and purchase the remedials via an installation or a remediation company.
yeah.
And is this process the one that's causing the confusion? Yes.
Yeah.
Absolutely causing the confusion. So from a legislation point of view, for the obviously the listeners that don't have they're not fire specialists, what's the key compliance that they need to follow at this moment in time? What's the key compliance today?
So it's relevant to the age of your building, but if we look at two parts of it, we look at you're required to maintain your building and you're required to have a suitable and sufficient risk assessment. Now, you said it earlier where you talked about fire strategies. Could you evidence that you had a compliant building and you were maintaining it if you can't tell me where the passive lines are, where the controls are in the building, what are the routes of escape? You need all of that in there. That's the very base of it, isn't it? Is it practicable to get it? Yeah, because a drawing, you can have it done by CAD or you can have a drawing made, but your risk assessors, so what lots of people are doing is, as you said, that it's fragmented. They're getting, the risk assessor never sees the fire door inspection report. Well, the legal requirement is a suitable system of maintenance. Why would the fire door inspector or remediator choose what that is? Wouldn't that be the risk?
Absolutely.
So if you've got £10,000 to spend and you haven't got any active control, well, the risk assessor might think, well, I'm happy with very minimal on the doors in this building, but we're going to look at an alarm because we're going to use A set versus R set. Actual safe egress against required safe egress time. Fire engineering and fire risk assessment isn't quite as the gaps need to be 4 mil. These are things that are driven to sell. These are driven sales tactics
and this has been my argument for the last 2 or 3 years in the conversations, that I've had with, I don't want to say that I argue with clients because I don't, but this is where it's just becoming a piggy bank. It's becoming an industry that it's all about profiteering.
Yeah. Yeah, it absolutely is. But it's also a lack of knowledge, a lack of... So many people I see going into buildings now, and obviously I do claims back against sales of misrepresentation. So someone selling you something that you didn't need. And there's a presumption that every door needs to be a smoke door. But what if your smoke detection is set up that there needs the travel of smoke? Well, the risk assessor would decide whether it needs to be it's design, again under section 11F. You need demonstrable SCEB to be able to design. So somebody just deciding that door looks great, we're going to change it. Well, they're not insured against design. The risk assessor would need to make judgment of what's practicable. Imagine a scenario, and I've seen this recently, where someone's had lots of work done. They got the risk assessor in and he went, well, that's not even on the fire line. That shouldn't be done. You've changed that door and that's not... Because, as you said, there has to be a process from where, your cradle to grave or grave back to cradle. It has to be evidence.
Yeah.
But I see 90% of work that I go out and see is there isn't the fire safety information on completion, so they've spent all this money and it's still not compliant.
Yep, exactly. Exactly.
Compliance is evidenced.
And this is where, for me, it's a huge frustration as the FM. We want to ensure that, the clients are compliant. And, when we're getting new opportunity and we say to the client, okay, no problem, yes, we will have a look at this work for you. We get the fire door inspection. And we look at the fire door inspection. So I'll use one as an example that we've worked on together recently. A multi-serviced office. They've had an independent survey, and 138 fire doors were inspected. And out of 138 fire doors, 90% of them actually had the word fail on them.
Yeah.
The client came to us and said they didn't ask us to look at the inspection report. They asked for a quote to remediate or replace that 90% of doors.
Yeah.
How wrong? Because they've not looked at the whole picture.
So in that particular case, and it was obviously you passed me the inspection, and what alarmed me straight away in that, as you know, that I went through and said, lots of these doors, my suspicion is these are not on passive lines.
And they weren't.
And then you look at the inspector and look at where that inspector has come up with, and it's the belief, isn't it? They've used belief rather than a fact. So what they should have done originally at the start is ask that client, have you got your fire strategy drawings?
Exactly.
And we're engaging the risk assessor right at that stage of getting the, and it's heavily laden on having the right risk assessor. A risk assessor, what comes in your building for 400 quid and is gone, is a waste of your time. A risk assessor, what will work through all of your passive and active and work with you on the controls. Well, yeah, you will be paying them more because they'll be doing a lot more work for you, but they will save you a lot of money. But what they will also, if your risk assessment and your maintenance are aligned, you're compliant. It's as simple as that. People say to me, well, what does it look like? Well, it looks different in every building because it's against risk, isn't it? You are allowed to, in all of your pre-2010 buildings, you will not have that information, so you can maintain that building in accordance. So the responsible person, you have articles from 8 to 24 that they need to work through. And I explain this to a lot of people is, have you looked at those articles? Have you actually looked at what your responsibilities are? And I get many say to me, oh, we've had the fire brigade. And I'll say, the fire brigade are enforcing officers. They are not here to manage. Have you seen their liability and indemnity? And of course you haven't, because that's not what their job is. No. Under Articles 25 to 31, in Article 26, it tells them they're going to enforce. It works the same as if you were driving down the road and the police pulled you over for your car being not roadworthy. They don't tell you then how to fix it, do they?
No.
Because they're enforcers.
Yeah.
And I think this is where we get this confusion that I've got these people who will go and tell a client, right, we're going to do this, here's your inspection, and here's the money for the work. You have an inspection. So what a fire door inspection should tell you. So it will tell you if the door is a notional, a nominal, or a certified. So the report will read something like, this door, when maintained in accordance with BS 8214, would, on completion, achieve a notional fire door with limited smoke control, say, or a nominal fire door with smoke control. That, or if you've got all of the information, so and when I say all the information, not just a plug in the door or a label on the top, but if they've come to you with their Regulation 38 or their fire safety information, and that shows you the manufacture, the installation, and the maintenance of that door and all of the components are there, you can evidence all of that's there, that would be a certified door. But you don't, I see people calling doors certified what are not certified. I see people getting notional and nominal mixed up. And why you do a report and it tells you what the door will be when maintained, because it allows the risk assessor to work out, will that be suitable when maintained, or does that need to be changed? You might be looking, the risk assessor will look at areas of risk. So they might say, I'm happy with all of those doors as notional, but that's in front of an electrical cupboard. So not only are we going to change the door, we're going to look at all of that internal passive line. So we're going to spend the money in there because that's the most likely risk of a fire. A fire risk assessor wouldn't walk just because it's on a passive line. It might be being used as an empty cupboard. But the risk assessor may also say, oh, we're in a school here and someone's put all the comms towers in this room. So although it wasn't originally on there, we need to do something in here and spend it. And it's that understanding the risk of your risk assessor holistically looks at all of the building if you've got the right risk assessor. There is lots what are copy and paste documents, but there's, we've now got a British standard against risk assessment, so you can have a look at someone's foundation, intermediate, and there's ways of looking and checking, and I draw it
of their competencies.
If you don't have the time or the skills, you engage with an FM or a consultant to take you right the way through it. Once you've been taken through it once, it is then repeat, isn't it?
Exactly.
It's just repeat.
Yeah, exactly. So all the changes that we've seen that were introduced in the 2022 regulations, what's been the biggest impact of them changes? Because as an FM and as somebody who is purchasing these services on behalf of our clients, I'm not seeing any real change other than no, there hasn't been any change. It's just the same.
So this is one what I really struggle with, and this is where lots of the mis-selling is coming, where people are saying when the change in law, it's been a requirement since the 1st of October 2006 to have a suitable and sufficient. So that is when the Fire Safety Order 2005 became legal. So that took over from the 1971 Fire Precautions Act. So once that was in, the requirement of the responsible person was duties under fire, 8 to 24 have been in there. But lots of people have now got, I was going to properties and, we're under 11 metres. We're not, where have you got that? Well, with the guidance document went out. And I said, well, what does it say in current situation, section 4? Does that say this does not remove the legal requirement of Article 17? Also says it in the section, buildings below 11 metres. You are required to have a system of maintenance. None of that has changed. But I think the Building Safety Act is being used to oversell again. So people are removing, so this is something that we have to really get down on, is the person who is putting them forward as competent, and it says within the Building Safety Act 2022 that a contractor or organisation must remove themselves for work outside their competence. Now, competence isn't just doing the job, it's knowing what the law is. Because the responsible,
it's compliance.
The responsible person's not required to be competent. They are the responsible person. People can, and I hear people saying, responsible persons should be competent. No, because back in my construction days, senior project manager, I was building nursing homes, building schools, building gyms. I can't wire a plug. I can't plumb a sink in. But I'm able to find the people who are competent to do that and then work them to the plan what the designers put in place. Well, that's it, isn't it? But the people who I'm employing can commission, they can do all of the work, they can do all of that. Now, when we look at competency and look at how it's set out and we look at SCEB, well, we look at behaviour in SCEB. Well, if I'm not telling you what the law is and what you legally... my behaviour's appalling, isn't it? So I'm naturally not competent for you because I'm not going to tell you the truth. I'm not going to say, you don't need to do that.
Yeah.
Or you're missing this.
Yeah.
You want me to come and do your doors, but I need to insist that you have a fire strategy in place, and I need to insist that we are working with the risk assessor.
Yeah.
Because if I tell you something that's not required, I can be deemed to be profiteering. Then we fall into sales under misrepresentation under the torts of law. Well, when we look at that, we have three torts, don't we? We have innocence. Well, can you be competent and innocent? Then we've got negligence and fraudulent. It really runs in, you obviously know I'm very black and white, and my brain will only, but it's for you to tell them.
Which is why we engage with you.
And it's for you to tell them of what it is. And I look at competence not about can you get 4 mil gaps around the door and are you telling people the truth? Are you being honest? Are you looking at just one part of law, or are you looking at all of it? Are you making that research? Where you said they handed a report in and then priced it. Well, that's not. They know that that's not
ethical.
Well, it's not ethical because they know that's not the process.
Anybody who is carrying out an inspection, and then providing a quote to put that failure wrong, how can that be ethical?
Well, there's also, when we talk about the ethics of it. So, for it, I'll use a term. We use BM Trada, the ART repairs. So when I say an ART repair to a responsible person or the client, you think they're certified repairs. No such thing as a certified repair. Repairs not, because a certified repair would have test evidence to it.
Yeah.
Well, they don't know what your door was in the first place, so how would they have test evidence to it?
Yeah.
They don't know what timber the person's used. They don't. So in their procedure schemes acceptance forms, the scheme don't lie about it because they call it a general rule of thumb. It's the people who have been on such a short course are paying so much to be on it, they're overselling what it actually is. But what it is just a very narrow pathway, but there's no evidence against them. They're just temporary repairs. But people are spending 500-600 quid on repairs on a door. That door blank, CF160, I can go and buy the door for 130 quid. So why are you... Because you think you are spending 3-4 times the value of the door to repair it, whereas if you went and just bought the door, and it's all against these ART repairs.
And let's be honest, did they actually need to either repair or replace that door?
So the problem with the ART repairs is they are such a narrow band of what you could do. So if you consult with the risk assessor may say, if you do this, that will be fine in this circumstance or in this location. You've got to treat every passive asset is a separate item. So you can't carte blanche go through a building and say, we need these, we need that. I'm seeing all of this where people are changing hinges. The hinges are not CE marked. They're in a building built in 1987. That became mandatory in 2013 for new products. It's not a retrospective design, and it's also not a legal requirement for internal fire doors still. There isn't CE marked. There's evidence, so test evidence is required, not certification evidence. Can it be evidenced? Yeah. Well, that's evidence, isn't it? And I think what is missed is all of this selling, it's around, this is the gold standard. But it's not the gold standard.
Yeah.
I was originally an FDIS certified inspector. I was sold it was the gold standard. I've since done lots of other training, And I realise it's not the gold standard. It's a scheme. But if that scheme requires... So you can fail an audit for BM Trada. So the responsible person's recommended, I want you to use BM Trada. Do you know what one of the things you fail an audit for on BM Trada? This will give you an idea of what the intention is.
Oh, go on.
The size of the BM Trada sticker on your van. What's that got to do with keeping people safe? What's that got to do with people being safe? So they will spend time doing that, but not auditing the process of who you're actually employing. You choose, they come to your site once every 6 months, you choose the site and you can choose who's on that site. But they will allow that, but if the sticker is too small on your van, you would fail. Well, we've lost ourselves because that means it's about advertising, it's about... And I understand there's a commercial, they're looking on the commercial rather than... Now, they can do that. You can set up a company, do what you want, but would the responsible persons be putting it on their tender list if they knew that? Have they read through it and understood it? And, you know, I did a document recently about does BM Trada protect the responsible person? Not to pull BM Trada apart, but if you're specifying something, you do need to understand what you're specifying, because the people that you're employing could say, well, you asked for us. You know, you asked for us to do this. We're not forcing it. But it wouldn't help. Sales by misrepresentation is still, you know, if your report says that I need to change your hinges because they're not CE marked when you didn't need to change them, and you're not steering them towards the risk assessor, you've still profiteered.
Yeah.